Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do a reading from the Philosophical Dictionary by Voltaire on two sections, two very spicy sections, one being atheism and the other being on free will. As always, we approach these topics from a standpoint of detached academia, and everything in here is Voltaire's words. So with that in mind, let's get nice and comfortable, and we can begin. Atheism. Section 1. On the comparison so often made between atheism and idolatry. It seems to me that in the encyclopedic dictionary the opinion of the Jesuit Ricium on atheists and idolaters has not been refuted as strongly as it might have been. Opinion held formerly by St. Thomas, St. Gregory of Nazianz, St. Cyprian and Tertullian. Opinion that Arnobius set forth with much force when he said to the pagans, "Do you not blush to reproach us with despising your gods? And is it not much more proper to believe in no God at all than to impute them to infamous actions?" Opinion established long before Plutarch, who says that he much prefers people to say there is no Plutarch than to say there is an inconstant, choleric, vindictive Plutarch. Opinion strengthened finally by all the effort of Bayle's dialectic. Here is the ground of dispute, brought to fairly dazzling light by the Jesuit Ricium, and still rendered more plausible by the way Bayle has turned it to account. There are two porters at the door of a house. They are asked, "Can you speak to your master?" "He is not there," answers one. "He is there," answers the other, "but he is busy making counterfeit money, forged contracts, daggers and poisons to undo those who have but accomplished his purposes." The atheist resembles the first of these porters, the pagan the other. It is clear, therefore, that the pagan offends the deity more gravely than does the atheist. With Father Ricium's and even Bayle's position, that is not all the position of the matter. For the first porter to resemble the atheist, he must not say, "My master is not here." He must say, "I have no master. Him who you claim to be my master does not exist. My comrade is a fool to tell you that he is busy compounding poisons and sharpening daggers to assassinate those who have executed his caprices. No such being exists in this world." Ricium has reasoned, therefore, very badly. And Bayle, in his somewhat diffuse discourse, has forgotten himself so far as to do Ricium the honor of annotating him very malapropos. Plutarch seems to express himself much better in preferring people who affirm that there is no Plutarch to those who claim that Plutarch to be an unsociable man. In truth, what does it matter to him that people say that he is not in the world? But it matters much to him that his reputation be not tarnished. It is not thus with the Supreme Being. Plutarch even does not broach the real object under discussion. It is not a question of knowing who offends more the Supreme Being, whether it be he who denies him or he who distorts him. It is impossible to know otherwise, than by revelation, if God is offended by the empty things men say of him. Without a thought, philosophers fall almost always into the ideas of the common herd, in supposing God to be jealous of his glory, to be choleric, to love vengeance, and in taking rhetorical figures for real ideas. The interesting subject for the whole universe is to know if it be not better for the good of all mankind to admit a rewarding and revengeful God, who recompenses good actions hidden and punishes secret crimes, than to admit none at all. Bayle exhausts himself in recounting all the infamies imputed by fable to the gods of antiquity. His adversaries answer him with commonplaces that signify nothing. The partisans of Bayle and his enemies have always fought without making contact. They all agree that Jupiter was an adulterer, Venus a wanton, Mercury a rogue. But as I see it, that is not what needs consideration. One must distinguish between Ovid's Metamorphoses and the religion of the ancient Romans. It is quite certain that never among the Romans, or even among the Greeks, was there a temple dedicated to Mercury the rogue, Venus the wanton, or Jupiter the adulterer. The god whom the Romans called Deus Optimus, very good, very great, was not reputed to encourage Claudius to sleep with Caesar's wife, or Caesar to be King Nicomedes' sodomite. Caesar does not say that Mercury incited Verres to steal Sicily, although Mercury in the fable had stolen Apollo's cows. The real religion of the ancients was that Jupiter, very good and very just, and the secondary gods punished the perjurer in the infernal regions. Likewise, the Romans were long the most religious observers of oaths. Religion was very useful, therefore, to the Romans. There was no command to believe in Leda's 2 eggs, in the changing of Inachus's daughter into a cow, in the love of Apollo for Hyacinthus. One must not, therefore, say that the religion of Numa dishonored the deity. For a long time, therefore, people have been disputing over a chimera, which happens only too often. The question is, then, whether a nation of atheists can exist. It seems to me that one must distinguish between the nation properly so called and a society of philosophers above the nation. It is very true that in every country the populace has need of the greatest curb, and that if Bayle had only 500 or 600 peasants to govern, he would not have failed to announce to them the existence of a god, rewarder, and revenger. But Bayle would not have spoken of him to the Epicureans, who were rich people, fond of rest, cultivating all the social virtues, and above all, friendship, fleeing the embarrassment of danger of public affairs, in fine, leading a comfortable and innocent life. It seems to me in this way the dispute is finished as regards to society and politics. For entirely savage races, it has been already said that one cannot count them among either the atheists or the theists. Asking them their belief would be like asking them if they are for Aristotle or Democritus. They know nothing. They are not atheists, any more than they are peripatetics. In this case, I shall answer that wolves live like this, and that an assembly of cannibal barbarians, such as you suppose them, is not a society. And I shall always ask you, when you have lent your money to someone in your society, you want neither your debtor, nor your attorney, nor your judge to believe in God. Of modern atheists, reasons of the worshippers of God. We are intelligent beings. Intelligent beings cannot have been formed by a crude, blind, insensible being. There is certainly some difference between the ideas of Newton and the dung of a mule. Newton's intelligence, therefore, comes from another intelligence. When we see a beautiful machine, we say that there is a good engineer, and that this engineer has excellent judgment. The world is assuredly an admirable machine. Therefore, there is in the world an admirable intelligence, wherever it may be. This argument is old, and none the worse for that. All living bodies are composed of levers, of pulleys, which function according to the laws of mechanics, of liquids which the laws of hydrostatics cause to circulate perpetually, and when one thinks that all these beings have a perception quite unrelated to their organization, one is overwhelmed with surprise. The movement of the heavenly bodies, that of our little earth, little round the sun, all operate by virtue of the most profound mathematical law. How Plato was not aware of these laws, eloquent but visionary Plato, who said that the earth was erected on an equilateral triangle, and that water on a right-angled triangle. Strange Plato, who says that there can only be 5 worlds, because there are only 5 regular bodies. How, I say, did Plato, who did not know even spherical trigonometry, have nevertheless a genius sufficiently fine and instinct sufficiently happy to call God the eternal geometer? To feel the existence of a creative intelligence? Spinoza himself admits it. It is impossible to strive against this truth which surrounds us and which presses on us from all sides. Reasons of the atheists. Notwithstanding, I have known refractory persons who say that there is no creative intelligence at all, and that all movement alone has by itself formed all that we see and all that we are. They tell you brazenly the combination of this universe was possible. Seeing that the combination exists, therefore it was possible that movement alone arranged it. Take 4 of the heavenly bodies only: Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Earth. Let us think first only of the place where they are, setting aside all the rest, and let us see how many probabilities we have that movement alone put them in their respective places. We have only 24 chances in this combination. That is, there are only 24 chances against one to bet that these bodies will not be where they are with reference to each other. Let us add to these 4 globes that of Jupiter. There will only be 120 against 1 to bet that Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and our Earth will not be placed where we see them. Add finally Saturn. There will be only 720 chances against 1 for putting these big planets in the arrangement they preserve among themselves, according to their given distances. It is, therefore, demonstrated that in 720 throws, movement alone has been able to put these 6 principal planets in their order. Take then all the secondary bodies, and their combinations, all their movements, all the beings that vegetate, live, feel, think, that function in all the globes. You will have but to increase the number of chances. Multiply this number in all eternity. Add up to the number which our feebleness calls infinity. There will always be a unity in favor of the formation of the world, such as it is, by movement alone. Therefore it is possible that in all eternity the movement of matter alone has produced the entire universe such as it exists. It is even inevitable that in eternity this combination should occur. Thus, they say, not only is it possible for the world to be what it is by movement alone, but it was impossible for it not to be likewise after an infinity of combinations. Answer. All this supposition seems to me prodigiously fantastic, for 2 reasons. First, that in this universe there are intelligent beings, and that you would not know how to prove it possible for the movement alone to produce understanding. Second, from your own avowal, there is infinity against one to bet that an intelligent, creative cause animates the universe. When one is alone, face to face with the infinite, one feels very small. Again, Spinoza himself admits to this intelligence. It is the basis of his system. You have not read it, and it must be read. Why do you want to go further than him, and in foolishness, arrogance, plunge your feeble reason into an abyss into which Spinoza dared not descend? Do you realize thoroughly the extreme folly of saying that it is a blind cause that arranges the square of a planet's revolution is always to the square of the revolutions of the other planets, as the cube of its distance to the cube is of the distances of others to the common center? Either the heavenly bodies are great geometers, or the eternal geometer has arranged the heavenly bodies. But where is the eternal geometer? Is he in one place, or in all places, without occupying any space? I have no idea. Is it of his own substance that he has arranged all things? I have no idea. Is he immense without quantity and without quality? I have no idea. All that I know is that one must worship him and be just. New objection of a modern atheist. Can one say that the parts of animals conform to their needs? What are those needs? Preservation and propagation. It is astonishing, then, that of the infinite combinations which chance has produced, there has been able to subsist only those that have organs adapted to the nourishment and continuation of their species. Have not all others perished of necessity? Answer. This objection, oft repeated since Lucretius, is sufficiently refuted by the gift of sensation in animals, and by the gift of intelligence in man. How should combinations which chance has produced produce the sensation and this intelligence, as has just been said in the preceding paragraph? Without any doubt, the limbs of animals are made for their needs, with incomprehensible art, and you are not so bold as to deny it. You say no more about it, You feel that you have nothing to answer to this great argument which nature brings against you. The disposition of a fly's wings, a snail's organs, suffices to bring you to the ground. Maupertuis' objection. Modern natural philosophers have expanded these so-called arguments. Often they have pushed them into trifling and indecency. They have found God in the folds of the skin of the rhinoceros. One could, with equal reason, deny his existence because of the tortoise's shell. Answer. What reasoning? The tortoise and the rhinoceros and all the different species are proof equally in their infinite variety of the same cause, the same design, the same aim, which are preservation, generation, and death. There is unity in this infinite variety. The shell and the skin bear witness equally. What? Deny God because shell does not resemble leather? And journalists have been prodigal of eulogies about these ineptitudes, eulogies that have not given to Newton and Locke, both worshippers of the deity who spoke with full knowledge. Maupertuis' objection. Of what use are beauty and proportion in the construction of the snake? They may have uses, some say, of which we are ignorant. At least let us be silent then. Let us not admire an animal which we know only by the harm that it does. Answer. And you be silent too, seeing that you cannot conceive its utility any more than I can, or avow that in reptiles everything is admirably proportioned. Some are venomous. You have been so yourself. Here there is question only of the prodigious art which has formed snakes, quadrupeds, birds, fish, bipeds. This art is sufficiently evident. You ask why the snake does harm. And you, why have you done harm so many times? Why have you been a persecutor? Which is the greatest of all crimes for a philosopher? That is another question, a question of moral and physical ill. For long has one asked, why are there so many snakes and so many wicked men worse than snakes? If flies could reason, they would complain to God about the existence of spiders. But they would admit what Minerva admitted about Arachne in the fable, that she arranges her web so marvelously. One is bound, therefore, to recognize an ineffable intelligence, which even Spinoza admitted. One must agree that this intelligence shines in the vilest insect as in the stars. And as regards moral and physical ill, what can one say? What can one do? Console oneself by enjoying physical and moral good, in worshipping the eternal being who has made one and permitted the other. One more word on this subject. Atheism is the vice of a few intelligent persons, and superstition is the vice of fools. But rogues, what are they? Rogues. Section 2. Let us say a word on the moral question set in action by Bayle, to know if a society of atheists could exist. Let us mark first of all in the matter what is the enormous contradiction of men in this dispute, those who have risen against Bayle's opinion with the greatest ardour, those who have denied with the greatest insults the possibility of a society of atheists, have since maintained with the same intrepidity that atheism is the religion of the government of China. Assuredly, they are quite mistaken about the Chinese government. They had but to read the edicts of the emperors of this vast country to see that these edicts are sermons, and that everywhere there is mention of the Supreme Being, ruler, revenger, rewarder. But at the same time, they are not less mistaken on the impossibility of a society of atheists. And I do not know how Mr. Bayle could have forgotten one striking example which was capable of making his cause victorious. In what does a society of atheists appear impossible? It is that one judges that men who had no check could never live together, that laws can do nothing against secret crimes, that a revengeful God who punishes in this world or the other the wicked who have escaped human justice is necessary. The laws of Moses, it is true, did not teach a life to come, did not threaten for punishments after death, did not teach the first Jews the immortality of the soul, but the Jews, far from being atheists, far from believing in avoiding divine vengeance, were the most religious of all men. Not only did they believe in the existence of an eternal God, but they believed him always present among them. They trembled lest they be punished in themselves, in their wives, in their children, in their posterity, even unto the fourth generation. This curb was very potent. But among the Gentiles, many sects had no curb. The skeptics doubted everything. The academicians suspended judgment on everything. The Epicureans were persuaded that the deity could not mix himself in the affairs of men, and at the bottom they admitted no deity. They were convinced that the soul is not a substance, but a faculty which is born and which perishes with the body. Consequently, they had no yoke other than morality and honor. The Roman senators and knights were veritable atheists, for the gods did not exist for men who neither feared nor hoped anything from them. The Roman Senate, in the time of Caesar and Cicero, was therefore really an assembly of atheists. That great orator, in his harangue for Cluentius, says to the whole Senate in assembly, "What ill does death do him? We reject all the inept fables of the nether regions. Of what then has death deprived him? Of nothing but the consciousness of suffering." Does not Caesar, the friend of Catiline, wish to save his friend's life at the same time as Cicero? Object to him to make a criminal die is not to punish him at all. That death is nothing, that it is merely the end of our ills, that it is a moment more happy than calamitous. And do not Cicero and the whole Senate surrender to these reasons? The conquerors and legislators of the known universe formed visibly, therefore, a society of men who feared nothing from the gods, who were real atheists. Further on, Bayle examines whether idolatry is more dangerous than atheism. If it is a greater crime not to believe in the deity than to have unworthy opinions thereof. In that, he is of Plutarch's opinion. He believes it is better to have no opinion than to have a bad opinion. But, with all deference to Plutarch, It was clearly infinitely better for the Greeks to fear Ceres, Neptune, and Jupiter than to fear nothing at all. The sanctity of oaths is clearly necessary, and one should have more confidence in those who believe that a false oath will be punished than in those who think they can make a false oath with impunity. It is indubitable that in a civilized town it is infinitely more useful to have a religion, even a bad one, than to have nothing at all. It looks, therefore, that Bayle should have examined rather which was more dangerous, fanaticism or atheism. Fanaticism is certainly 1,000 times more deadly, for atheism inspires no bloody passion, whereas fanaticism does. Atheism is not opposed to crime, but fanaticism causes crimes to be committed. Fanatics committed the massacres of St. Bartholomew. Hobbes passed for an atheist. He led a tranquil and innocent life. The fanatics of his time deluged England, Scotland, and Ireland with blood. Spinoza was not only atheist, but he taught atheism. It was not he, assuredly, who took part of the judicial assassination of Barneveld. It was not he who tore the brothers De Witt in pieces and who ate them grilled. The atheists are, for the most part, impudent and misguided scholars who reason badly, and who, not being able to understand the creation of the origin of evil and other difficulties, have recourse to the hypothesis of the eternity of things and of inevitability. The ambitious, the sensual, have hardly any time for reasoning, and for the embracing of a bad system. They have other things to do than comparing Lucretius with Socrates. That is how things go among us. That was not how things went with the Roman Senate, which was almost entirely composed of atheists in theory and practice, that is to say, who believed in neither providence nor a future life. This Senate was an assembly of philosophers, of sensualists, and of ambitious men, all very dangerous, who ruined the Republic. Epicureanism existed under the emperors. The atheists of the Senate had been rebels in the time of Sulla and Caesar. Under Augustus and Tiberius, they were atheist slaves. I would not wish to have to deal with an atheist prince who would find it in his interest to have me ground to powder in a mortar. I should be quite sure of being ground to powder. If I were a sovereign, I would not wish to have to deal with an atheist courtier whose interest it would be to poison me. I should have to be taking antidotes every day. It is therefore absolutely necessary for princes and for peoples that the idea of a supreme being, creator, ruler, rewarder, revenger, shall be deeply engraved in people's minds. Bayle says, in his Thoughts on the Comets, that there are atheist peoples. The Cathars, the Hottentots, the Topinambos, and many other small nations have no God. They neither deny nor affirm. They've never heard speak of him. Tell them that there is a God. They will believe it easily. Tell them that everything happens through a nature of things. They will believe you equally. To claim that they are atheists is to make some imputation as if one said that they are anti-Cartesian. They are neither nor or against Descartes. They are real children. A child is neither atheist nor deist. He is nothing. What conclusion shall we draw from all this? That atheism is a very pernicious monster in those who govern. That it is also pernicious in the persons around statesmen, although their lives may be innocent, because from their cabinets it may pierce right to the statesmen themselves. That it is not so deadly as fanaticism. It is nearly always fatal to virtue. Let us add especially that there are less atheists today than ever, since philosophers have recognized that there is no being vegetating without germ, no germ without a plan, etc., and that wheat comes in no wise from putrefaction. Some geometers who are not philosophers have rejected final causes, but real philosophers admit to them. A catechist claims God to the children, and Newton demonstrates him to the learned. If there are atheists, whom must one blame? If not the mercenary tyrants of the souls who, making us revolt against their knaveries, force a few weak minds to deny God, whom these monsters dishonor. How many times have the people's leeches brought oppressed citizens to the point of revolting against their king? Men fattened on our substance cry to us, "Be persuaded that a she-ass has spoken. Believe that a fish has swallowed a man, and has given him up at the end of 3 days, safe and sound on the shore. Have no doubt that the God of the universe ordered one Jewish prophet to eat excrement, and another prophet to buy 2 whores, and to make with them the sons of whoredom." These are the very words of the God of truth and purity has been made to utter. Believe 100 things either visibly abominable or mathematically impossible. Unless you do, the God of pity will burn you. Not only during millions of thousands of millions of centuries in the fire of hell, but through all eternity, whether you have a body, whether you have not. These inconceivable absurdities revolt weak and rash minds, as well as wise and resolute minds. They say, our masters paint God to us as the most insensate and most barbarous of all beings, therefore there is no God. But they should say, therefore our masters attribute their God to their absurdities and their furies, therefore God is the contrary of what they proclaim. Therefore God is as wise and good as they make him out, and mad and wicked. It is thus that wise men account for things. But if a bigot hears them, he denounces them to a magistrate who is a watchdog of the priests, and this watchdog has them burned over a slow fire, in the belief that he is avenging and imitating the divine majesty he outrages. Well, that's the end of the section on atheism. But don't worry, we're not done yet. It walks quite nicely hand in hand with the free will section. So, before we go, it's a much shorter section, but I wanted to add it in, if not just to make up the last 5-10 minutes of the video. So this is the section by Voltaire on free will. Ever since men have reasoned, the philosophers have obscured this matter, but the theologians have rendered it unintelligible by absurd subtleties about grace. Locke is perhaps the first man to find a thread in this labyrinth, For he's the first who, without making the arrogance of trusting in setting out from a general principle, examined human nature by analysis. For 3,000 years, people have disputed whether or no the will is free. In the essay on human understanding, chapter on power, Locke shows first of all that the question is absurd, and that liberty can no more belong to the will than color and movement. What is the meaning of this phrase, to be free? It means to be able, or assuredly it has no sense, for the will to be able is as ridiculous at bottom to say that the will is yellow or blue, round or square. To will is to wish, and to be free is to be able. Let us note, step by step, the chain of what passes in us, without obfuscating in our minds by any terms of the schools or any antecedent principle. It is proposed to you that you mount a horse. You must absolutely make a choice, for it is quite clear that you either will go or that you will not go. There is no middle way. It is therefore of absolute necessity that you wish a yes or a no. Up to there it is demonstrated that the will is not free. You wish to mount the horse? Why? The reason, an ignoramus would say, is because I wish it. This answer is idiotic. Nothing happens or can happen without a reason, a cause. There is one, therefore, for your wish. Well, what is it? The agreeable idea of going on horseback which presents itself in your brain, the dominant idea, the determinant idea. But you will say, can I not resist an idea which dominates me? No. For what would be the cause of your resistance? None. By your will you can obey only an idea which will dominate you more. Now, you receive all your ideas, therefore you receive your wish. You wish, therefore, necessarily. The word liberty does not therefore belong in any way to your will. You ask me, how thought and wish are formed in us. I answer, that I have not the remotest idea. I do not know how ideas are made, any more than how the world was made. All that is given to us is to grope for what passes in our incomprehensible machine. The will, therefore, is not a faculty that one can call free. A free will is an expression absolutely void of sense, and what the scholastics have called will of indifference, that is to say, willing without cause, is a chimera unworthy of being combated. Where will be liberty then? In the power to do what one wills. I wish to leave my study. The door is open. I am free to leave it. But, say you, if the door is closed, and I wish to stay at home, I stay there freely. Let us be explicit. You exercise then the power you have of staying. You have this power, but you have not that of going out. The liberty about which so many volumes has been written is therefore reduced to its accurate terms. Only the power of acting. In what sense, then, must one utter the phrase, man is free? In the same sense that one utters the words health, strength, happiness. Man is not always strong, not always healthy, not always happy. A great passion, a great obstacle, deprive him of his liberty, his power of action. The word liberty, free will, is thereof an abstract word, a general word, like beauty, goodness, justice. These terms do not state that all men are always beautiful, good, and just. Similarly, they are not always free. Let us go further. This liberty being only the power of acting. What is this power? It is the effect of the constitution and present state of our organs. Leibniz wishes to resolve a geometrical problem. He has an apoplectic fit. He certainly has not the liberty to resolve his problem. Is a vigorous young man madly in love, who holds his willing mistress in his arms, free to tame his passion? Undoubtedly not. He has the power of enjoying, and has not the power of refraining. Locke was therefore very right to call liberty power. When is it that this young man can refrain, despite the violence of his passion? When a stronger idea determines in a contrary sense the activity of his body and soul. But what? The other animals will have the same liberty, then by the same power? Why not? They have senses, memory, feeling, perceptions, as we have. They act with spontaneity as we act. They must have also, as we have, the power of acting by virtue of their perceptions, by virtue of the play of their organs. Someone cries, "If it be so, everything is only a machine. Everything in the universe is subject to eternal laws." Well, would you have everything at the pleasure of a million blind caprices? Either everything is the sequence of the necessity of the nature of things, or everything is the effect of the eternal order of an absolute master. In both cases, we are only wheels in the machine of the world. It is a vain witticism, a commonplace, to say that without the pretended liberty of the will, all pains and rewards are useless. Reason, and you will come to quite a contrary conclusion. If a brigand is executed, his accomplice who sees him will expire, has the liberty of not being frightened at the punishment. If his will is determined by itself, he will go from the foot of the scaffold to assassinate on the broad highway. If his organs, stricken with horror, make him experience an unconquerable terror, he will stop robbing. His companion's punishment becomes useful to him and an insurance for society, only so long as his will is not free. Liberty, then, is only, and can only, be the power to do what one wills. That is what philosophy teaches us. But if one considers liberty in a theological sense, it is a matter so sublime that profane eyes dare not raise themselves to it. And that's the end of the section on free will. Hey, pretty interesting, don't you think? Writing those sorts of things back in the day could get you in trouble. But I suppose it depends on what friends you have, and how high places those friends are in, how high other places, you know what I'm trying to say. After an hour or so of talking, there's certainly some attrition. Now allow me to thank my top tier patrons and supporters, all lovely people. Dark, Gary, Kimberly, Ember, Ben, Britt, Charles, Aaron, James, Jeffrey, Melissa, Scott, Stout Factory, Wendy, Jaden, Sherry, Jessica, Christine, Sally, Katiana, Christine, Fizabo, Legitmus, Maverick, and Susan. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening so far. Don't we have fun on this channel? And I will remind you again, we always read these things on a perspective of detached academia. Sometimes I get people in the comments accusing me of aligning myself with all sorts of ideologies that some of which I have no idea what they actually are. Well, it goes back to the old saying, don't shoot the messenger. Well, good night, everybody. As always, lots of love to you all, and I'll see you in the next video.